Whoever does not miss the Soviet Union has no heart. Whoever wants it back has no brain. Sometimes it is necessary to be lonely in order to prove that you are right. Those who fight corruption should be clean themselves. I have a private life in which I do not permit interference. It must be respected. Terrorism has no nationality or religion. My English is very bad. We shall fight against them, throw them in prisons and destroy them. My personal position is that society must keep children safe. Stalinism is linked with the cult of personality and massive violations of the law, with repression in camps. There is nothing like that in Russia and, I hope, will never again be. One has to be insincere and promise something which you cannot fulfill. So you either have to be a fool who does not understand what you are promising, or deliberately be lying. We need business to understand its social responsibility, that the main task and objective for a business is not to generate extra income and to become rich and transfer the money abroad. Everything will probably never be okay. But we have to try for it. The centuries-old history and culture of India, majestic architectural monuments and museums of Delhi, Agra and Mumbai have a unique attractive force. I don't read books by people who have betrayed the motherland. I was brought up in a very ordinary family, in fact, a worker's family. Both my father and mother were ordinary citizens. If you aspire to be a leader of your own country, you must speak your own language, for God's sake. He who does not regret the breakup of the Soviet Union has no heart, he who wants to revive it in its previous form has no head. I think the American people should express their preferences, and we'll accept their choice. I think the international community should unite to fight such inhuman phenomena as terror attacks and the murder of totally innocent people. The ability to compromise is not a diplomatic politeness toward a partner but rather taking into account and respecting your partner's legitimate interests. Russia and China are very natural partners. We are neighbors with an immense common border. Russian democracy is the power of the Russian people with their own traditions of national self-government, and not the realization of standards foisted on us from outside. Iraq is a small but very proud nation. Political activities in Russia should be as transparent as possible. Financing political activities from abroad is something the state should keep an eye on. Politics should not interfere with sports, and sports should impact politics. Terrorism has once again shown it is prepared deliberately to stop at nothing in creating human victims. An end must be put to this. As never before, it is vital to unite forces of the entire world community against terror. The more intermediaries there are, the more problems there are. I think every person should have some faith inside him, in his heart. What matters is not an external display of this faith, but the inner state of the soul. How does one control weight? By not overeating. How does one stay in shape? One plays sports. There are no magic pills here. You must obey the law, always, not only when they grab you by your special place. In the modern world, those who are weak will get unambiguous advice from foreign visitors which way to go and what policy course to pursue. A considerable share of the world's population still cannot afford comfortable housing, education and quality health care. In accordance with the Constitution of the Russian Federation, the issues of foreign policy and defense are fully in the hands of the President. The Eurasian Union is a project meant to preserve the identities of nations and the historic Eurasian community in the new century, in a new world. It is necessary to suppress any extremist actions, on all sides, regardless of their origin. It is wrong to make anyone into an enemy. It is wrong to scare the people of one's own country with that enemy and try to rally some allies on that basis. I'm eternally grateful to fate and the citizens of Russia that they've trusted me to be the head of the Russian government. I think happiness is love. If you want my personal attitude, I would tell you that I don't care about a person's sexual orientation. I go to the gym, I swim daily, and from time to time I meet with friends and do extracurricular stuff. We're no longer in the Cold War. Eavesdropping on friends is unacceptable. I am the wealthiest man, not just in Europe, but in the whole world. I collect emotions. I am wealthy in that the people of Russia have twice entrusted me with the leadership of a great nation such as Russia. I believe that is my greatest wealth. The United States and Russian security services regularly exchange information. The Russian people have unilaterally made their choice in direction of democracy in the early 90s. They will not be led astray. Nobody should be having any doubts. No one should be allowed to violently trample on the law. It's Russia some people would like to get rid of. They are still afraid of our nuclear deterrent. We have our own foreign policy whether they like it or not. Protest actions and propaganda are two slightly different things. Radicals can be found in any environment. If the nation is not capable of preserving itself and reproducing, if it loses its vital bearings and ideals, then it doesn't need foreign enemies, it will fall apart on its own. All attempts to appease the Nazis between 1934 and 1939 through various agreements and pacts were morally unacceptable and politically senseless, harmful and dangerous. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that in Russia, unlike in 1/3 of the world's countries, being gay is not a crime. You need to put drones under control. You need to lay out certain rules of engagement in order to prevent or minimize collateral casualties. It is extremely important. No references to the need to fight terror can be an argument for restricting human rights. I believe that the presidential term should be limited. At last, Russia has returned to the world arena as a strong state, a country that others heed and that can stand up for itself. China is a great country with a great culture, populated by fascinating, industrious and talented people. Our military might is the guarantor of Russia's security and independence. Russia is a part of European culture. Therefore, it is with difficulty that I imagine NATO as an enemy. Terrorists are always a threat to someone. If we'll be scared of them, it means they have won. I swim almost every day, 1,000 meters. I think we should not control the internet. History proves that all dictatorships, all authoritarian forms of government are transient. Only democratic systems are not transient. Whatever the shortcomings, mankind has not devised anything superior. We are all different, but when we ask for the Lord's blessings, we must not forget that God created us equal. In many countries today, moral and ethical norms are being reconsidered, national traditions, differences in nation and culture are being erased. You can swim any way you like in the Dead Sea, actually. I see that not everyone in the West has understood that the Soviet Union has disappeared from the political map of the world and that a new country has emerged with new humanist and ideological principles at the foundation of its existence. The leaders of the world's largest economies agreed during the November 2008 G20 summit not to create barriers hindering global trade and capital flows. Russia shares these principles. My parents told me that children were taken from their families in 1941, and my mother had a child taken from her, with the goal of saving him. Demographers affirm that choosing to have a second child is already a potential choice in favor of a third. I spend a little time every day to play sports. If there are people who act outside the law, then the state must use legal means to impose law in the interests of majority. That's the way it's done in the US. And that's the way it's done in Russia. U.S. society doesn't want to play the role of international policemen. As far as oligarchs who acquire sports team abroad, and invest money abroad, I wouldn't treat this phenomenon as something bad. The state security body should not be seen as an institution that works against society and the state. One needs to understand what makes them work against their own people. The path towards a free society has not been simple. There are tragic and glorious pages in our history. What is a unipolar world? No matter how we beautify this term, it means one single center of power, one single center of force and one single master. Despite all the achievements of civilization, the human being is still one of the most vulnerable creatures on Earth. Economic activity is moving from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. Russia has a certain natural advantage because it also borders the Pacific Ocean. We don't need a weakened government but a strong government that would take responsibility for the rights of the individual and care for the society as a whole. Between major countries, there certainly always are some common ground and points of tension. Thieves must sit in prison. What is a Rechtsstaat? It is obedience to the existing law. I am not prejudiced in any way. One can truly enjoy his or her life only while experiencing it, and it is inevitably related to a certain level of risk. President Obama hasn't been elected by the American people in order to be pleasant to Russia. Millions around the world increasingly see America not as a model of democracy but as relying solely on brute force, cobbling coalitions together under the slogan, "You are either with us or against us." I myself know some people who are gay. We're on friendly terms. I'm not prejudiced in any way. Anyone who doesn't regret the passing of the Soviet Union has no heart. Anyone who wants it restored has no brains. It's alarming that military intervention and internal conflicts in foreign countries has become commonplace for the United States. There are both things in international law: the principle of territorial integrity and right to self-determination. Nobody and nothing will stop Russia on the road to strengthening democracy and ensuring human rights and freedoms. Indeed, Russia and the U.S. were allies during the two tragic conflicts of the Second and the First World Wars, which allows us to think there's something objectively bringing us together in difficult times. The growing economic potential of India and Russia is mutually complementary in many respects. Libya is divided into tribes and clans. Russia does not and cannot have any political choice but democracy. I want to say, and even stress, that we share those universal democratic principles taken around the whole world. The Russian people have their own cultural code, their own tradition. McCain fought in Vietnam. I think that he has enough civilian blood on his hands. For Russia, there is not and there may not be another political option but democracy. However, Russian democracy is not at all the realization of standards imposed on us from outside. How can a bureaucrat or a politician be trusted if he says loud words for the sake of Russia's good while trying to take his funds, his money abroad? The democratic choice Russian people made in the early 90s is final. My working and personal relationship with President Obama is marked by growing trust. I appreciate this. Russia does not want confrontation of any kind, and we will not take part in any kind of holy alliance. I am convinced that the norm in Russia should become a family with 3 children. At a certain point, we saw the police cracking down on the Occupy Wall Street activists. I won't call the actions of police appropriate or inappropriate. I would prefer to abandon the terminology of the past. Superpower is something which we used during the Cold War time. Why is it now? Russia is opposed to the proliferation of mass destruction weapons, including nuclear weapons, and in this context we call upon our Iranian friends to abandon the uranium enrichment program. Cromwell is just as much of a bloody dictator as was Stalin. Few people understand the magnitude of the catastrophe that happened late in the 1980s when the Communist Party had failed to modernize the Soviet Union. Our society, including the liberals, must understand that there must be order.